Welcome into Kickin' It on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network. I am your host for the week, Grant Mahoney, joined here by my co-host for the week and producer, Aiden Wyatt. Aiden, how are you?
Happy to be here. Thanks for letting me up on the big kids table this week.
Of course, man. It's, Thanksgiving. I heard you got to sit at the big kids table at Thanksgiving, so I figured let's give you a shot here recording the podcast. Kickin' It is brought to you by Kelderman Manufacturing. We're also recording in the Wild Rose Casino studio, fueled by Cody Road, and the studio is furnished by Nebraska Furniture Mart. So there are your ads, Aiden.
There you go.
How about that game, man? That was a fun game.
Top 5 game Iowa State's played in my life, I think.
For sure. I was never a part of a snow game, and I've never really paid attention to snow games. Mostly because college football, I just watch Iowa State. Occasionally, I'll catch an NFL game, I guess, that has snow, but that was a lot of snow. I'd heard that in the area they got over 7 inches of snow, and all of last year, Manhattan got 6-something inches of snow all of last winter. So they had as much snow before, during, and after that game as they did all of last winter.
See, I was excited because it seems like every time we hear it's going to be a snow game, who knows what could happen. And then there's like an inch of snow, and it's all off the field. And it's not really a snow game, but
Just
it's technically a snow game. Like that fraud Jeff Woody likes to say he played in the Ice Bowl 2013. It's a fake snow game.
He's a fraud, man. I encourage all the listeners to take what he says with a grain of salt. The dude just lied. No. Fun game, though.
Father of one Jeff Woody now.
That's right. Father of one Jeff Woody. Beautiful little daughter. Interesting, too, that Kansas State, being in a state that gets snow every winter, you don't have the proper equipment to get the snow off the field. I can appreciate that they got the yard markings, but at halftime, I would hope that they would have had a tractor or something out there brushing off the snow. But
did you see that there was I'm not sure who it was, but there might have been a phallic shape made in the snow pregame?
No, I did not see that. That's great. That's great. Props to. I did hear that on those listening on the radio on my way to. I went to go meet up with a buddy to watch it at a bar, and I did hear on the radio. Walters, I think I can text you guys this. Walter, maybe not. Walters went down to Harklaw. I was like, Hark, how is it down there? And Harklaw was like, well, it's tough because these students are over here throwing snowballs at me, and if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a snowball. And I love Spicy John Walters, and he goes something like, well, Hark, grab a snowball and throw it back at them. See those kids like it. I'm like, yeah, all right, John. All right, let's dive into the game, man. That was a fun game. I think that's one. Williams just talked about it too. He talked about it in his post game that'll be a game that we talk about for decades to come.
It already has a name for it. Snowmageddon.
Snowmageddon, baby.
You slap any name on any game, and it's there forever.
That's right.
It's history.
That's right. And you could say Snowmageddon. You could say the Abu Sama game. For some reason, before the game started, I thought I didn't know that Norton and Sanders were out, but I thought this will be a big game for Sama. I've got a feeling. And then you guys tell me that Norton and Sanders are out. I was like, oh, okay. Well, here we go, Abu. And dude went off. So I want to dive into some of the stats from the game because this was a very it was an awesome game. It was a lot of fun. So as we know, Sama had the first play of the game was a 71-yard touchdown, which we saw that in 2021 with Brees Hall. Last time we played at Manhattan, 71-yard touchdown run. He also had a 77-yard touchdown run and a 60-yard touchdown run. So he had 16 carries for 276 yards, averaged 17.6 yards per carry. And I've been pounding the Abu Sama drum all year, saying he needs to get more reps. And Texas is tough. Texas has got a great defensive line, so no one looked good against them. And I think this was just kind of a perfect storm, no pun intended, where Abu got his shot and just he was patient and found the lanes and just took off. And then occasionally got a boost from Kansas State defenders, but it was so awesome to see him, not just him, but this entire team, being how young they are, play the way they did and get the win they did in the way they did.
Yeah, going back to that push, I had never seen anything like that.
It was great.
I don't know who it was for Kansas State, but
number 8, yeah, he got torched. I think he took a bad angle on his first one too, and then he eventually got tripped up by one of his teammates who dove for Sama and missed him. But yeah, I was listening to a Kansas State podcast on the way here, and that guy was like, they need to just get rid of the guy's scholarship. Like, what are you doing? Like, you didn't try to bump the ball out, tackle him. Nothing. You just sprung him forward. What do you do? It reminded me. Boost. Yeah, it reminded me of, and I texted you guys this, the Ricky Bobby slingshot. Just Where Abu Sama did have a great game, I think Jalen Noel might have had a more impressive game because he had 3 catches, for 160 yards, including an 82-yard touchdown catch where he hopped, then did a little shimmy shake, and then sprinted down the sideline, which was really smart finding the grass.
Yeah, and he didn't even get touched on that play, which is crazy.
He didn't. Really smart, though, finding the grass to because no one out there had good footing. So you find the grass where you can, and he found it and was gone. So 82-yard touchdown, then also had a 79-yard touchdown on a slant. Just a beautiful ball by Rocco. And, I was talking to my buddy while we were watching the game, and he was like, I think Iowa State might be the best. He's like, I've got no bearings because I can't compare us to anybody else, but I think Iowa State has the best slant game in America. And
they abuse it.
They do. I mean, almost too much. But
well, against Texas, it seemed like, when they
Third
kind of
down.
load one side, knowing that Texas was in man coverage or cover 0 on a blitz or whatever it was, and that backside slant was just open all day.
Yep.
So slant merchants, Iowa State. Maybe.
That's right.
Not a problem.
Well, and I feel like Rocco is, I don't think he has a weak arm, but he's very accurate, which, I mean, bodes well for slants. And, if you need your quarterback, especially a young quarterback, early in the season, which obviously it's not early in the season, but early in the season, you need your young quarterback to get some confidence. What better than short routes and slants are there?
It's kind of shit in the layups.
That's right. I will say too that on that, if you're able to go back and watch it on that the first run by Abu, who was it? It was Steve-O Klotz. Steve-O Klotz and Easton Dean are the ones that like parted the Red Sea for him. But Steve-O and Bramer were double teaming a guy, and they pancaked the guy. They both kind of fell down. You see them running down, like celebrating Abu running in the end zone, and they hug each other midfield. I was like, that's just
love it for the big boys.
That's fun to see, especially right out the gates. And then on Jalen's long touchdown run, what will go missed? Bramer didn't have a great game as far as like receiving wise. I love that we tried to run more of those tight end tunnels. Caught on to us though. I mean, we've run a couple weeks in a row, but on Jalen's long scamper down the sideline there, Bramer had a really nice block that sealed off that edge on the sideline that allowed Jalen to go down the sideline. So, shout out to him. But I want to talk about some of the wild stats and Williams. He had tweeted this, so I'm just gonna go through a few of them that stuck out to me. This might be all the ones that he tweeted, but I'm gonna read through the ones I've got here. So, Iowa State only had 2 plays on Kansas State's side of the field, and 0 plays were in the red zone. So the closest we got was Jaden Higgins. I think it was a 33-yard touchdown pass. That was the closest.
Which, before we move on, I thought it was kind of funny that Iowa State had been pounding the Abu Sama game, and I think Jalen Noel had a couple catches, or maybe 1 catch at that point. But all of a sudden, it's like, all right, we're just going to throw it to our other weapon.
Yeah.
And 2 catches and a touchdown.
Yeah. And I think those are the only 2 catches that Higgins had were on that drive.
Yeah.
So we had no plays in the red zone, and the longest drive of the game for Iowa State was 4 plays. Kansas State had the ball for 42 minutes and 12 seconds compared to Iowa State's 17 minutes and 48 seconds. Kansas State ran 102 plays to Iowa State's 35, and keep in mind, 3 of those 35 plays were kneel downs. So really, Iowa State got 42 points on 32 plays. And I think Sama had 16 rushes. So half of Iowa State's plays were Abu Sama rushes.
They ain't broke.
That's right. Hot hand. And then lastly, Kansas State had 32 first downs to Iowa State's 10, which, when you're getting 60, 70-yard touchdowns, you don't really need first downs, just get in the end zone. So it's great, though. I mean, Kansas State is the number 1 team in the Big 12 that I hate the most. And so for the fact that, that Iowa State beat them in the way that they did in just such a fun fashion of like, oh, we only need 2 plays, then we're gone. And to just, poo-poo on their season and end it the way they did. Their fans are just so entitled. And I get it. They went to the Big 12 championship game last year. As I mentioned, I was listening to a podcast on the way here, and the guy in the podcast, he said, this is gonna go down as a big what if season for Kansas State. He's like, we should be 12-0 playing in Arlington, and I'm like, they're just so delusional. And my mom used to always have this saying that I think fits well for them, and it's Kansas State fans. She didn't say this about Kansas State fans, but just in general, that they think they're hot snot on a silver platter, but really they're just a cold, crusty booger on a paper plate. That is what I feel like Kansas State fans are. Is that they think they're hot snot, but they're really just cold, crusty boogers, and I'm glad that Iowa State put them in their place and beat them. And Iowa State beat them so bad, Will Howard decided to enter the transfer portal. So, see ya. Time for they do have a good freshman quarterback though,
Yeah.
Avery Johnson. But
not gonna speculate anything on that, but
yeah,
You think maybe that Kansas State as a program was ready to move on from Will Howard?
I had seen on social media that that he thinks he's going to Notre Dame, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess I'll take a step back. I really don't like the thing I don't like about NIL right now, and we don't need to talk about this, but that schools are able to talk to players who are on teams.
Well, look at, the NBA, it's a big problem. It's tampering.
Right.
There's no
repercussions in college. I don't like this. So has Notre Dame been talking to Will Howard? I don't know. But I did see that after the game, our guy we had on last week, Tim Fitzgerald, he has insider knowledge that he feels like Notre Dame and Will Howard had been talking. So he thinks Will Howard's going to go to Notre Dame. So I think
interesting.
I think they were ready to move on from Will Howard. Their third string quarterback, Jake Rubley, also entered the transfer portal, who, if you remember, in 2020, there were some states that didn't have football.
Yep.
He came from Colorado and went to Valley.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I forgot about that.
Yep. So he played at Valley his senior year. Looked very pedestrian. I was surprised he was still a 4-star, but nonetheless, into the transfer portal. There he goes. I want to give a shout out to Contreras and Tyler Perkins. Kicking the football, one, in cold weather sucks. It's like kicking a rock. But two, kicking in inches of snow, I can imagine was very, very tough. So Perkins as a punter, ideally, I didn't see him do this, but ideally what you would like is to have a smooth path and, whatever direction you're going to punt the ball. Well, if he didn't clear away snow, there could have been bumps and lumps and whatever in the path he was going. So that is tough as a punter to walk your path while going through a non-flat surface, but then also swinging your foot through, inches of snow. So shout out to Perkins. He had an average of, I think, 38.8 yards on 4 punts, along with 44, basically out there kicking rocks, which sucks. And then Contreras was 6 for 6 on PATs. Didn't need a field goal because we were just too busy scoring touchdowns. And again, kicking those footballs suck. And there was one PAT that the snap was out of Perkins' area. And shout out Perkins for getting it and getting it down. And it looked like Chase basically no-stepped the PAT, which is not an easy thing to do, but, got it over and made it. So, shout out to him too. Shout out to Nalbach too. I know I've kind of been on his ass this year. He had a great game and it was tough, tough conditions. And he put the ball right where it needed to be, aside from that one PAT. But again, that's tough to be perfect, especially in those conditions.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned you had never played in a snow game or anything like that. But what phase of special teams do you think is the most difficult in those conditions? Whether it's like snapping, holding, catching the snap on a punt, whatever. Could be returning.
Yeah. That's a good question. I feel like I may be biased. Maybe kick off because the kicker, one, needs to...
I feel like that plant foot, if you slip or anything, it's...
Well, yeah, the plant foot, but then also like if you are on the coverage team, you don't really have much traction, so you're trying to run full speed, basically on ice, and then you have to slow up to try to find the lanes. And so, thankfully, Iowa State. Well, I mean, I guess everyone's playing in the snow, so no one's really got traction. But I feel like it takes. You saw with Abu, it takes one lane to open up, and people are 3 steps behind you. But I think all phases are affected. But I think the most would probably be maybe kickoff, or like we saw on punts, the ball's not going to bounce at all. So that's why I'm glad that Perkins he got into it. And there was one that I think Iowa State pinned him within the 5. That on a normal day with no snow, it probably would have bounced in the end zone. Yeah. But with the snow, it hit and went like 2 yards and just kind of spun and stopped.
So do you think Perkins kind of had the mindset to change how he punted, since you're not really relying? I mean, if you're looking for if he's trying to boot a 50+ yarder or something, you might be relying on some bounce or something. Kicking it away from a returner. But on the flip side, in the situation where he pinned him inside the 10 or the 5 or whatever it was, do you think you can put a little more on it and be like, you know what, it's not going to bounce today, so I can just kick it as far as I want, as long as it doesn't go in the end zone?
Yeah, I think you can, especially in those conditions with, the snow is falling, and I might be making all this up. The snow falling, the ball is probably a little bit heavier. I'm guessing the snow probably, it's going to weigh the ball down a little bit as far as like a flight. It's not going to quite go as high as if it was on a perfectly sunny day. But yeah, because Perkins would usually drop it. I'm trying to think of what it's called. I can't think of what it's called. But basically, we drop the ball straight down, and you want to kind of kick the underside of it so it gets that backspin.
Right.
And the thought on that on a normal sunny day is that it'll hit and then kick back. I don't think he did that on those, and if he did, still smart. But yeah, get into it. I'm glad he did have a good game. And I'm guessing he probably did just get into it because knowing that the ball wasn't really going to bounce, which that's something you see in pregame and halftime. You can kind of judge from where you're good and just get into it and see how the ball bounces. I'm sure you saw enough that the ball wasn't really going anywhere. So yeah, he's able to get into it and have himself a good game.
Is there a rule? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the one thing I would say if I was being nitpicky, again, weird condition, weird games, is that Jalen's been very good all year on punt return. The only thing I would say is that he was really slow or really late at calling off like the Peter, like basically get away from the ball. And again, it might have been hard to see the ball in the snow. So by the time he could see it, it might have been too late, which is why we saw the ball, hit off Bacon because he didn't hear that in time. Yeah. I'm guessing. My only nitpick, but again, weird game. Not good, perfect.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, is there a rule in college? I think it's a rule in the NFL. Maybe they might have changed it, but I know the Bears got in trouble for it a couple of years ago. You can't, like on hold, you're not allowed to move snow or something like that. Or actually, that might have been a towel with rain. Now that I'm thinking about it. You know what I'm trying to say, though?
Yeah, I think you can. I think you can, move the ball. You mean like on a field goal, like
like the holder brings out a towel or something and then wipes.
I don't know if you
the
can
ground.
Use, I don't know if like
might not be able to use a towel.
Yeah, if you can't use props, but you should be able to use your hand. I know they don't like guys that on field goals. They don't like guys that mark it. If they catch you marking where the spot is at, like where your hand is at, you could get in trouble for that. But when I was kicking, my holder would always, if we were near a hash, would always pull up some white grass and put it down. Occasionally, he would bring sunflower seeds with him and would just have them in his back pocket and pop them in his mouth as we run out there. And he would put 2 or 3 and put them down on the spot.
Sneaky.
Yeah. So that's one way to kind of get around. But as far as like wiping off, clearing an area, I think you can. But as far as props, I don't know. Gotcha. I'm not sure if that's allowed or not. So that's kind of all we got up with the game, though. I guess one last thing I will say is that obviously, Norton and Sanders did not travel. Verdon was hurt, didn't play. I don't think Nickel played either. And so we saw a lot of Drew Sturgis. We saw a lot of young guys.
I'm not sure if Ben Nickel was hurt or not. I saw a picture after the game, and he was in one of the giant coats.
Like a parka, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
I saw he was in the same thing as Verdon. That's all that I saw, too. So I figured he'd... Because I can't remember if Sturgis is the backup for Verdon or... Well, no, I guess you're right. Yeah. Because, yeah. Okay. Either way. Impressive game, though. I guess what I was going to say is that the team is very young. You look across the board on offense, Iowa State loses Hufford. He is the only senior that, I guess Hufford and Dean. I think Easton still has a COVID year. Hufford might as well. But I think both those guys will probably move on. Other than that, though, Iowa State doesn't have any seniors that would be gone.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a Pete Thamel tweet. Dave Aranda sticking around at Baylor. That was a big deal. And tweeted, the case for optimism pushing forward includes a talented core of young players. Baylor played the most freshmen in the Big 12 in 2023, with 24 true and redshirt freshmen playing 4,500 snaps.
Lies.
Well, Derek, could you clap back?
That's right.
Iowa State played 32 freshmen, a combined 4,771 snaps this fall.
That's crazy. And so, you look across the board, and Iowa State has so much youth, and we saw this with Brock Purdy. The Brock Purdy regime, where every year you obviously want to get better and better and better, and by year 3 and 4 with all those older guys, you expect to have a great year. And unfortunately, we didn't have a good year, or what year we were thinking Iowa State was going to have. But this team just feels different.
Yep,
this team feels different. Not different from the Brock Purdy era. I feel like it feels very similar to the Brock Purdy era, but I feel like the Brock Purdy era, they were kind of laying the foundation of what it means to win and what it means to be great. And that's all that these guys in the program know, aside from last year. But that's all that they know is the culture that has been established by the Dave Montgomerys, the Breece Halls, the Brock Purdys. And I think the sky's the limit for these guys. And I'm probably drunk on the Kool-Aid. I said earlier in the year, I'm a terrible betting man, but I hope someone listened to me when I said I think this team's going to go 6-6 or 7-5. And here we are, 7-5.
Phil's Grant, no ball. People are asking.
Yes. Football, basketball. I did say Iowa State was going to win the basketball tournament, and we did not. We can talk about that another time when Schuster is not on his deathbed.
He's not actually dying.
Just has the flu. Just has the poops. But the team's super young, so I think next year, obviously losing Tampa and Vaughn, I'm glad he had an interception this game. Love to see seniors on like their last few games. It was awesome to see Easton Dean get a touchdown on senior night. Great to see Vaughn. Basically, I guess now Iowa State still stopped him, but he stopped the Kansas State drive. To have a good game because he's kind of been overshadowed by a few things this year and maybe hasn't had the kind of year he's wanted to. But I'm glad to see him have an interception. But on defense, Iowa State basically, aside from anybody transferring, so I'm not trying to knock on wood. Hopefully no one does transfer. Iowa State basically just loses Vaughn and Tampa on defense, and then on offense, Dean and Hufford. So,
right, that's with no one entering the portal, no one declaring for the draft or anything like that.
Yep. Which I don't think anybody on defense would declare early. Tampa would have been the only guy last year.
Yeah, which I think Tampa technically has a year left, but
he's gone. He's out around. Yeah. And then on offense, I don't think anybody would leave early either. I don't think anybody should leave early, I should say. Because we got mostly freshmen, sophomores, and then, across the line, we've got Neal's a sophomore, Hufford, obviously senior.
Yep.
Boniface is a sophomore, Black is a true freshman, and then Tyler Miller is a junior. Quarterback and running back are freshmen for both running backs. We got a good freshman coming in next year. Higgins and Knoll are both juniors. Daniel Jackson's a junior, so our receivers are older, but there's some young guys waiting in the wings.
Right.
And then freshman, or I guess tight end, you've got Bramer as a freshman. Dean is a senior, obviously. But then you've got Gabe Burkle and Tyler Moore. I think they're both redshirt freshmen.
Tyler Moore might be a redshirt sophomore.
Okay.
I think.
Underclassman, though.
Underclassman regardless.
And then Andrew Keller is one guy who's a good tight end, too, that I think he got hurt and hasn't played yet. So hopefully he sticks around because he's got a bright future. And then defense, on the defensive side, you've got Joey Peterson, Jr. You've got J.R. Singleton, Jr. or Dom Orange, the big citrus as a sophomore, true sophomore. And then on the other end, you got Ike Iziagu, who was a redshirt freshman, I believe. Played a lot. He played a lot this last game. And then the other D end, Tyler Onyedem, I think, is a junior as well, too. Sophomore, I think. He's a young guy. Look it up. Young guy. But then, linebackers, you got Willich, redshirt freshman. You got Sadowski, true freshman. You got McLaughlin, I think, true sophomore. Vaughn, who is a senior, so he'll be gone. Then you got Tampa, senior, he'll be gone. Perch is a junior, so he'll most likely come back. But then you've got Jontez Williams, I think, is also, I think he played cornerback.
Yeah.
He's a redshirt freshman.
I think so.
Then you got Freeler and Verdon, both juniors. Or is Verdon a sophomore? Freeler is a junior, and I think Cooper and Verdon are both sophomores, maybe. But then you got
Onyedem is a redshirt sophomore, by the way.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And then you got Drew Sturgis, who is a
Verdon redshirt sophomore.
Yep. And then Cooper's a true sophomore, and then Sturgis is Drew Sturgis is a walk. He's a walk on, but I think he's a. Look this up. He might be a true freshman.
I think you're right.
That's super impressive. A true freshman walk on playing in the defense is impressive. You can be a true freshman on the offensive side, and you have a little bit more room for error. But as far as like a defensive guy playing in the schematic, I guess the schematic defense that Iowa State runs, that's super impressive for Sturgis to be. I'm sure he'll earn a scholarship at some point. But yeah, point in case, the team is very young. I will say, Perkins is a sophomore as well too. Contreras is a senior, so he'll be gone. But then Knobloch is also long snapper. He's a redshirt freshman. So Contreras will be gone. Jace Gilbert is a true sophomore. I think he'll stick around. I think he has a chance to play next year as well too. But I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa State goes transfer portal hunting again. Transfer kickers have been good to Iowa State. And I'm gonna pound this, until it comes true. I think Contreras has the ability to play on Sundays too. So keep an eye out for that. So that's all I was gonna say about the game. You got anything else you want to say?
I got one more thing while we're talking freshmen. So you played 1 year under Chiswick?
Yep.
So you were part of 2 coaching staffs.
I was.
what is the philosophy how is it different between them and Matt Campbell's staff when it comes to playing freshmen? Because I feel like I could be wrong, but when you were in school, it was a lot of upperclassmen that were getting a majority of the reps, not just at Iowa State, but across college football, it was dominated by older guys. Now we're seeing a lot of freshmen and sophomore making big-time plays for pretty much anyone.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with transfers, too, and NIL, and guys leaving early probably. You know, you've seen a lot of juniors that are coming out going, too, but when I played under Chiswick, he really wanted to get his guys in. So a lot of us played as freshmen. Like Leonard Johnson came in, played as a freshman. He beat out a senior. Was he better than him? I don't know, but I think that was Chiswick's thing is like Chiswick was under the impression that Iowa State has been so bad for so long that I'm going to get my guys in, that I can recruit the guys, and the guys that I bring in are going to be better than guys that are on the roster. Now, as far as Campbell, I think, and the era that we're in, I think Coach Campbell sees it as, if you are good enough to play, I'm going to play you. And I think that's why we've seen a lot of guys rotating in, because he knows that if you are sitting on the bench and you're a talented freshman, there's a good chance you're going to enter the transfer portal. And so if you are good enough to play, Campbell will play you because he doesn't want you to leave.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we saw, Jamison Patton. Yeah, he came in and played. Another guy I did mention. He came and played a lot these last few games. And yeah, Cooper was hurt, but he's one of those guys that's very talented that he should have been playing. And had Cooper not been on the team, Patton probably seen a lot more playing time. But I think that is kind of Campbell's philosophy, is that if you're good enough, we're going to play you. And we think that our two deeps, are just as good. So that's why they want to keep fresh bodies in, which we've seen a lot of guys rotating in. The future's bright. Yeah, it's promising. Again, I'm probably drunk on the Kool-Aid, but next year we're going to win 10 games. Calling it now. Said it before. Say it again. Next year we're winning 10 games. So one other thing I want to talk about is bowl projections. So Iowa State finishes the year 7-5. I believe they're tied for third in the Big 12.
I think they finished
fourth.
Technically tied for fourth.
Yeah, tied for fourth.
Because it was Oklahoma State, obviously, Texas, obviously, and then OU was one game ahead, I believe.
Yep. So looking at everything here, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and Kansas all have better records than Iowa State, but our Oklahoma State, no, I was going to say that Oklahoma State and Kansas State both have better records in the Big 12 conference, and I think they do. But Iowa State owns head-to-heads over Kansas State and Oklahoma State, so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens here on championship Saturday here, because the big things that'll come into play will be Georgia, Alabama. Got to think Georgia will win that one. They'll stay in. Michigan's already in. They're gonna demolish Iowa, so they'll be in. And then you've got because who are the top four right now?
Georgia. Well, I guess Ohio State won't be anymore, but they were, because it was 2-3 for the game last weekend. So I think it was Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, Washington 4.
Yeah, so I think the top four right now, in no order, is Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and Washington.
I feel bad for Florida State.
Yeah,
Jordan Travis going down.
So,
I really like them too.
So what I was going to say is that, Iowa State and I guess all the Big 12, it would behoove the Big 12 for Texas to beat Oklahoma State and work their way into college football playoffs. And so the ACC championship game is Louisville and Florida State. Louisville just lost to Kentucky, but as you mentioned, Florida State's Jordan Travis done for the season.
Yeah. Their
backup quarterback has not looked good. It's a rivalry game, but they struggled with Florida, who ended up 5-7. So if Louisville beats Florida State, which, side note, hell of a first year by Jeff Brom at Louisville, who came from Purdue. Awesome year for him. If Florida State beats, or if Louisville beats Florida State, that's good for the Big 12, assuming Texas wins. Also, Washington and Oregon play. So those two teams are both, in the kind of right in the same mix where Texas is. Right now, Washington is ranked higher than Oregon, but Oregon is like a 9.5 point favorite. So I don't think if Oregon beats Washington, that is best case scenario for the Big 12, because I think that wipes Washington out. Florida State would be washed out. Texas would jump up. I don't think Oregon would jump Texas. Their strength of schedule is booty. They're not very good.
Yeah.
So that's what we want as Iowa State fans. We want Texas to get in the college football playoffs because then that moves the bowl game rankings up.
Yep, that and money.
Money.
Whole conference gets money.
Yep.
I don't know if it works like this with the college football playoff, but the NCAA tournament, like FAU. So they were in, I can't remember what conference they were in last year, but they joined, I think they're in Conference USA.
Sounds right.
They joined the American this year.
Didn't know that.
So they went to the Final Four in basketball.
They went to the championship game. Oh,
yeah, right. Yeah.
No, Final Four, you're right.
So, the conference gets the money and then it gets spread out between schools. Well, the money comes the year after. So FAU didn't see a dime of their Final Four run.
Oh, dude, that'd be such.
So hear me out.
That would be great. I know where you're going.
Texas makes the playoff and they don't see any money from it.
That would be awesome.
I don't know if that's how it works for the college football playoff. I know that's how it works for the NCAA tournament.
That would be so just like.
So there's a lot of good that could come with Texas.
Enjoy the SEC and all the money you're going to have
Yeah.
there. We'll take the money you got from. If that is true, that'd be great.
It's honestly a win-win for the Big 12 having Texas and Oklahoma State in, because it's either Texas loses and, hey, they didn't win the Big 12 title and they ended the way that they have been for the last 15 years, which is irrelevant.
That's right. They haven't done since 2009. So, So if Texas wins, then Oklahoma would probably jump up. I don't think Oklahoma State would be in the Fiesta Bowl, but then
it's an automatic. Wait, you're talking if Texas wins?
Yeah.
See, I don't know how that works. Whether it's just like, oh, they were technically the Big 12 runner-up, so they just get like the conference championship bid essentially.
Yeah.
Or if the Fiesta Bowl can just be like, hey, we kind of want Oklahoma instead.
Yeah, because Oklahoma State finished 9-3, but they beat Oklahoma, and Oklahoma finished 10-2.
Exactly.
So that'd be tough, and I'm not sure what bowl committees look at if they look at head to head, because if they do, I could see Iowa State jumping Oklahoma State and Kansas State. I could see Iowa State jumping Oklahoma State and Kansas State because they beat them, but also Kansas because they kind of flooded down the stretch. But then also West Virginia. West Virginia finished 8-4, which
Neil Brown cooled down a little bit, but
Neil Brown
saved his job.
He sure did. He was on the hot seat this year. Speaking of hot seat, though, Houston fired Dana Holgorsen, so we'll have a new coach coming in next year, at least one. Baylor, Aranda's sticking around, so I think we'll just have one new coach, probably in the
As
Big
of
12.
right now, yeah.
Yeah. So best case scenario, Texas goes to the college football playoffs. Oklahoma or Oklahoma State, doesn't matter. They go to the Fiesta Bowl, and then from there it kind of trickles down. So I'm gonna go through, kind of where different outlets have Iowa State projected, and just kind of talk about those games, just for a hair. So right now, CBS Sports projects Iowa State would play in the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth versus the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. Get some. I would hate that game, to be honest, but it'd be good to get some, payback.
It's a revenge game.
I cannot imagine we'd lose to freaking Louisiana again. I mean, we were without Charlie Kohler, and there was nobody in the stands. That game is played in TCU Stadium, so no thank you. I mean, in my opinion, bowl games should be played in destinations and cities and stadiums that you never get to play in. That's the fun of bowl games.
Right.
So, if there was ever a bowl game that was played in Jack Trice Stadium, like I would hope that Iowa State would never play in that. That'd be so deflating, in my opinion. So that's where CBS projects Iowa State to play in the Armed Forces Bowl. Athlon projects Iowa State to play in the Bahamas Bowl versus California, which would be sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be a lot of fun to go to the Bahamas, because the way bowl games work is if the game is on a Saturday, typically you'll get there like on a Sunday or Monday, and you're there for about a week, and you practice every day, get acclimated to the area wherever you're at. But then it's a week of events and stuff that are just out of this world. Like when we played in the Pinstripe Bowl, one day we went to Ground Zero, so we saw where 9/11 was. We went to the Empire State Building. We took it was just the team, so the coaches weren't even there, which I'm not sure why why there's no adult supervisors, because we were a bunch of knuckleheads. But we behaved ourselves well enough. We had a yacht dinner where we were fed dinner on this yacht, just kind of cruised around and whatever that body of water is around the Statue of Liberty. So it was really cool. So you see a lot of stuff.
We got to play at Yankee Stadium, old Yankee Stadium.
Played at Yankee Stadium. I had Jorge Posada's locker, and Alex Rodriguez's locker was next to mine.
Who had that one?
I don't remember, but I may get in trouble for saying this. He had 13 like hand painted posters that he was to sign. I snagged one of them and gave it to my buddy who's a huge Yankees fan. And I'm not sure where it's at right now. So I hope I don't get in trouble. Brandon Michelson has that poster now. So they're going to come after someone, go after him. He lives in Sierra Iowa.
I think Woody has a story. I don't think he's told it on the show before. But before the game, he had brought his baseball glove with him.
Yep. And played catch.
With Chris Hassel.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was... So yeah. Also, the day before the game, we had like there was like different like mixers, if you will. So like we played Rutgers that year, and the day before the game, we had like a dinner, like a welcome dinner or whatever it was. I think it was the day before. Maybe it was a couple of days before. Anyways, but there's like a magician there. There's like a live band there. It was a lot of fun. And then you have like your like hospitality suites where you'll see Iowa State post like videos of it where they've got like that basketball game where it's like basketball and there's like netting on the side. Yeah. Probably like skee ball, air hockey, video games. There's snacks galore. So it's awesome. Bowl games are awesome. So that's why I hope we don't play in like Fort Worth, which is still cool to be in Fort Worth, but you want to go to a city like the Bahamas. Right. I guess the Bahamas isn't a city, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So one thing while we're on the subjects of having fun at bowl games, a lot of people say that bowl games are pointless now. I am a believer that they are not pointless.
I don't think they are.
So, you've been a part of teams that were in bowl games, that have won bowl games, that didn't make bowl games, and that lost a bowl game. So explain to me, the non-college football player, why a bowl game matters and why winning takes it to the next level.
So the biggest thing why bowl games matter is, especially with Iowa State's team where they're young, you get an extra month, depending on when the game is, but usually about a month of extra practices where if, say Iowa State were to go 4-8 again this year, right now those guys are back home. I mean,
they're done.
They're done. I mean, they may not be back home, but the team would typically give them a week or two off. Finish up finals or whatever you've got, go home, rest with their family, and then come back. And at that point, as a senior, you're done. You're just taking classes. You're, especially if you're not going on to the NFL or not preparing for the NFL, you're done. But for Iowa State, it's huge because they're so young. That extra month of practices is invaluable. I mean, you can't get enough practices with your young players, but for as young as Iowa State is, that's going to be huge for them. So I'll be curious to see, where they go and who their opponent is, because I think Iowa State beating Kansas State, they put themselves in a really good position because they have, of those 5 teams, Oklahoma State, Kansas, West Virginia, and Iowa State, they have the 2 most impressive wins over, they have 2 of the better teams in that group of 5 right there, victories over 2 of them.
So I have the list for Big 12 bowl partners here. So the Sugar Bowl, I think, replaced the Fiesta Bowl. I think Fiesta Bowl is just a college football playoff at large.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So it could be the Fiesta Bowl, but technically the Big 12 tie-in is the Sugar Bowl, and then it goes Alamo, Pop-Tart Bowl, Tax Act, which is the one in Fort Worth, right?
I think the Pop-Tart Bowl used to be the Camping World Bowl, which Iowa State played Notre Dame and Clemson in.
So that would be the 3rd bowl game. So if you go by order of Big 12 standings, hypothetically, Texas makes the playoff, then you go Oklahoma State. I don't know if they would still get an at-large or not with that.
I would guess Oklahoma would probably jump them.
So maybe, let's say Oklahoma's there.
That would be best case for Iowa State if Oklahoma jumps them.
And then Oklahoma State goes to Alamo. Iowa State might have a chance at the Pop-Tart Bowl. Maybe.
I think they would.
Who knows? But after that, it's the Tax Act Bowl. Then it's Liberty, Guaranteed Rate, Armed Forces, and the Independence Bowl in Shreveport.
Yeah, and the Guaranteed Rate Bowl is formerly the Insight Bowl, which I played in 2009, and then it was it's gone through 7 name changes.
Yeah,
it was then Buffalo Wild Wings, and then Cheez-Its, which now Cheez-Its is a different bowl. I think Cheez-Its was the Camping World Bowl, which is now...
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess. So there's that.
Sorry to interrupt, but...
Go for it.
Do you know where the Guaranteed Rate Bowl is played?
The Guaranteed Rate Bowl, yes, I've got that in my notes here.
Where's it played?
It's played at Chase Field, which is home of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Exactly.
I would not like that either, because playing in Yankee Stadium, yes, it was cool playing in Yankee Stadium. Planting on what was the infield, so the sand, it's like between first, second, third base. Planting on that, brutal, because they basically just laid sod down, and there was a bunch of snow, rain and snow, I think, the few days leading up to our game. So it was just a soggy mess.
Yeah.
And you would plant, like on kickoffs, you'd plant and you'd slide like 3 inches. It sucked. I mean, it was cool playing in Yankee Stadium, but I would not like to go back to the Pinstripe Bowl again.
I do have good news for you. Chase Field has a dome.
Okay.
So, and it's also in Arizona, so there shouldn't be any snow.
Okay.
But also, that's where Iowa State won their first bowl game in 2000.
Get out of here.
So,
Against who?
Pittsburgh.
There you go. I knew
I
that.
believe Paul Rhodes was on the staff of Pittsburgh at that time.
Yep. Darrell Revis would have been there, probably. Larry Fitzgerald. One of the two. One of the two.
I think Larry Fitzgerald was there, but Jermaine Billups goes down Iowa State history for that game.
There we go. Continuing on here. So Fox Sports projects Iowa State. This would be a fun one. Fox Sports projects Iowa State versus Oregon State in the Independence Bowl, which the Independence Bowl would suck. I don't think we're going to go there.
See, I think the worst part about that, actually, no, I take that back. I was thinking the Independence Bowl. I was going to say the Independence Bowl is played on December 16th. So it's like,
That's way too early.
yeah. The other games are, the 23rd, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, January 1st.
Yeah, that's in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
No. Bowl games need to be like right around Christmas time, in my opinion, like the ones you want to play in. So they Fox Sports projects Iowa State to play in the Oregon State in the Independence Bowl. Oregon State's coach just left to go to Michigan State, so he won't be coaching them. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So before we move on, the news broke like 15 minutes before Oregon State kicked off Friday night. Yeah. So
that's
it's
terrible,
like,
man.
could you imagine going to an Iowa State game and on your way in, you're having a good time, tailgated all day, and Matt Campbell's leaving.
Can you imagine the people that mother effing him in the stands, especially if it's a home game?
Brutal. Yeah.
And they played Oregon this week too. It's like I get that the coach needs to go and do his own thing, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too soft. I would at least have the decency to announce it after the game.
Right. Well, and it's not 100% on him. I mean, the word kind of got leaked from someone else, not
It's true.
him. So
it's an interesting scenario, one, because Oregon State doesn't have a head coach, but Iowa State played against DJ, I'm going to butcher his name, Ugalele.
Ungungulele or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
At Clemson a couple years ago, and Iowa State played Clemson in the Camping World Bowl. He's now the quarterback at Oregon State, so that'd be cool. I'm kind of curious, too, what he would do. Because one, Oregon State's like not in a conference right now, and two, they don't have a head coach, so he's a good quarterback, so I think he should enter the transfer
that's
portal.
interesting. I didn't know anything about that.
His brother plays for Oregon, so you want to go down the street. And then also Ames and Corvallis are very similar cities. I've heard that Corvallis is just like Ames. So
That's what our boy Chris Felica said.
yeah, so that'd be cool. That'd be cool to play against them, but not in that bowl game. No thanks. One ESPN writer thinks Iowa State will play Minnesota in the Guarantee Rate Bowl in Phoenix, which
Sound familiar?
does. Guarantee Rate Bowl, like I said, used to be an Inside Bowl. So yeah, so
You were in Tempe, right?
yeah, so we played in Arizona State Stadium, which was a
I was at that game.
really cool place. You're probably like 12 at that time, weren't you?
No, younger. I would have
my
been
God.
8.
Wow.
Sorry.
Dated me, man. So that game used to be played at Arizona State Stadium, which is really cool. They had a Arizona State. Pat Tillman played at Arizona State. They had like a really big like memorial for him in their stadium, which is really cool. So I hope Iowa State plays. I know they play at Arizona State in a couple of years. That's a really cool thing to see. So I hope we're able to, I guess highlight that when Iowa State does play there, because I saw that BYU, when we were playing BYU, they weren't playing in Ames, but they had a big piece on Jack Trice, which is a really cool piece too. So I hope that when Iowa State plays at Arizona State, we're able to see kind of that Pat Tillman montage, if you will, because it's really cool.
While we're on Arizona State, I need to publicly air this. I am on the Arizona State bandwagon. Kenny Dillingham, my guy. He's 33 years old. He's their head coach.
He's younger than me. It's crazy.
He was the OC at Oregon for a little bit. He's at Arizona State. I think he's a young, up-and-coming guy. I just want to get ahead of this. Arizona State's not going to be terrible in the next couple of years.
What'd they finish this year?
They were 3-9. They had
First year, though.
They had a couple close games. They had a couple blowouts. But they kept it close with someone who they shouldn't have. I won't be able to get that up in time, but
Colorado.
could have been, yeah.
I think they beat them, which, yeah, I'm off Colorado, man. I did see that Warren Sapp, though, is on their coaching staff now.
He is?
Yeah,
I didn't even know
he
that.
just got announced that their tight end coach just announced he's leaving. Colorado just lost like their quarterback for 2024, 2025, a receiver and a running back in the 2024 and 2025 classes. And then Warren Sapp says, I'm joining the team, I'm joining the squad. So yeah. And then another ESPN writer has Iowa State versus UTSA in the Liberty Bowl, which that's like the hardest pass of all hard passes for me. Like, no, thank you. I don't play UTSA at all. Don't play in the Liberty Bowl at all. I also saw someone else had Iowa State versus Memphis again in the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah,
like,
I saw
get
that
out of
too.
here with that garbage. So, interesting scenarios. We'll see a lot more, as Saturday unfolds. There are a lot of games though. Like I said, the Oregon State or the Oregon Washington game is kind of a coin flip.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be a good game to see because you've also not only got both teams kind of fighting for college football playoff hopes, but also Bo Nix and Michael, is his first name Michael Penix,
Yep.
kind of battling for the Heisman as
Yeah.
well too. So that'd be a really good game to watch. But then also Louisville and Florida State playing too. Kind of two games to keep your eye on if you're Big 12 fans because you want Oregon and Louisville to win. To send Texas and Oklahoma out on a good bye, but we'll take your money and run.
Yeah. How cool is it though that, we've had a couple years where 1, 2, 3 are pretty locked in, and then 4, 5, 6 like, well, anyone could really make it. I think you can make a case for like 10 teams to make the playoff this year if things go a certain way, obviously. But it's a great year for college football. Yeah,
it is. It is. And it stinks that, if Iowa State is able to get into the Alamo Bowl, they would probably play Arizona, who finished 9-3, which is crazy. I think Arizona was one of the worst.
See, they got, I think it's Jed Fish is his name.
Yeah, I think they were one of the worst, like 2 or 3 years ago, were one of the worst teams. So I'm glad they're joining the Big 12 next year, right? People are saying, that Texas and Oklahoma leaving, Big 12's going down, they're G5. It's going to be a fun,
here's the thing. The Big 12 might not ever win a national championship again.
But
with 12-team playoff,
yes, we will get
changes.
at least, the Big 12 will get at least one team in, though, every year.
Mm-hmm. So, there's an outside chance of a national championship, obviously. You have to be in it to win it, and they will be. But it's going to be a fun league. Yeah,
and that's what I love about this new Big 12, and really kind of how the Big 12 has been the last few years. Yeah, Texas and Oklahoma are always kind of flagship teams, but Texas hasn't won the Big 12 since 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma has. Like, they've kind of been, the steady hand.
Just a reminder, I was 8 years old.
Yeah, I was, freshman in college. Sophomore in college, actually. And you got me off my thought.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So, but we've seen teams like TCU pop up, Oklahoma State pop up, Baylor pop up, Iowa State was in the in the championship game, Kansas State. So, in my opinion, having a wide open league is more fun than having
just Oklahoma or Texas.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to take shots at the SEC or the Big Ten, but Big Ten West, no team in that division has a chance at winning the Big Ten championship. It's going to be either Michigan, Ohio State, maybe Penn State.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're kind of going away from, they are going away from divisions, I think will be good for the Big Ten. Or you look at the SEC, it's usually, LSU, Alabama, sometimes Auburn and Georgia. But in the Big 12, it's going to be wide open, and it'll be just an absolutely electric basketball conference too.
And so I think, Big 12 fans didn't realize how good we had it. Just having 10 teams, it was perfect for the 2 best teams to go to the championship every year, and everyone plays everyone. So you don't have these weird tiebreaker rules or anything
that's what
like
I miss.
that.
That's what I do miss, is that with these leagues getting so big, not everyone's playing everyone, and we see it this year, which sucks with head-to-head, determining tiebreakers.
Yep.
I wish everyone did still play everyone, which is why I believe that Big 12 still has some restructuring to do. Farmageddon going away in 2027, we gotta fix that, and I think there needs to be not necessarily divisions, but kind of pods,
Right.
Especially with teams, not just even in the Big 12, but maybe in the Big 10, and we'll see how these other conferences kind of evolve too. We've talked about it before on the show, but there needs to be pods, to kind of keep some regionality to it.
I agree.
So it's kind of all we got for you today. Jeff may be joining us next week. Back to your regularly scheduled programming. Hopefully I haven't been too boring for the listeners, and we still have some listeners that will join us next week. But you got anything else you want to talk about, Aiden?
I think we got it all.
Perfect. Well, thank you to all of our loyal listeners, and for everyone who's still listening. Remember, adopt, don't shop.